Welcome to Mr. Screen. Certainly everything that will happen on Doomsday will leave everyone speechless, but even so, for those who follow the comics, they know that the outcome of this will lead to something even worse, and I will bring here a being that is even superior to everything we imagined. Without further ado, let's get straight to the point. In a not-so-distant future, the streets of New York were covered in rubble. The buildings that once proudly touched the sky were now carcasses of concrete and steel, scars left by the most brutal battle the Earth had ever witnessed. Dr. Doom Stark, a terrifying fusion between Tony Stark's technological genius and Victor Von Doom's mystical and ruthless coldness, stood as the supreme conqueror. His suit shone with a deadly combination of advanced nanotechnology and ancient runes that pulsed with incomprehensible power. Before him, the new Avengers lay in pieces. Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, struggled to his feet, his wings broken and his shield cracked. Beside him, Kate Bishop, the new Hawkeye, gasped, her bow broken in her trembling hands. Shang-Chi, his face covered in sweat and blood, struggled to stand, the 10 rings in his arms emitting a dim light. "You tried," Doom Stark said, his voice echoing with a tone of triumph and contempt. "But your resistance was in vain. Doomsday is inevitable." A boom split the air. For a moment, even Doom Stark looked away in surprise. A figure emerged from a glow, a flowing cloak and an aura of unmistakable arrogance. Loki, the god of mischief, stepped into the scene, his expression wry and his eyes shining with ulterior motives. "Loki," Thor murmured, who had been unconscious until then, waking up with a gleam of hope in his eyes. "You saved them." Loki raised an eyebrow and gave his brother a mocking look. "Save is a strong word, Thor. Let's just say I'm here to right a wrong. And believe me, that righting will cost us dearly." Doom Stark frowned, assessing the new threat. "You've come to challenge my supremacy, god of trickery? What wrong is it that you fear so much?" Loki gave a short laugh, walking across the battlefield as if it were his own stage. A Doom, always so confident. "No, I didn't come for you. I came for something that all of us heroes and villains have unwittingly unleashed. The battle for power, the manipulation of the Tesseract, and the convergence of realities. We created something that should never exist." Thor approached, still with difficulty, staring at Loki. "Speak, brother. What does it all mean?" Loki paused dramatically, the echoes of destruction still reverberating around him. "We have created the Beyonder, an entity that is the very embodiment of the impossible. And he is coming to consume all that remains of our reality." As Loki spoke, an ethereal energy began to emanate from the sky above. It was as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. A blinding light emerged, and in an instant that seemed an eternity, the sky split open into a void without form or color. From this abyss emerged a towering figure, clad in a robe that seemed to be made from fragments of all realities. His face was inscrutable, constantly shifting as if to reflect the chaos of the timelines he controlled. "Who dares to play with the tides of time?" The Beyonder's voice rang out like a chorus of billions, reverberating in every mind present. He was not just one entity. He was the echo of all the choices and changes made by those who dared to manipulate fate. Doom Stark, for the first time, felt a chill run through him. Even with his fusion of powers, he knew he was up against something beyond all comprehension. "Who are you?" he growled, maintaining his posture, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. "I am the product of your unbridled ambition, your thirst for power," the Beyonder replied, his incandescent eyes falling on Doom Stark and Loki in turn. "All of you, from the god of trickery to the man who thought himself invincible, and the wizard who broke the barriers of reality, you all contributed to my existence." Sam Wilson exchanged a look with Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop, the air thick with unbearable tension. They knew they were facing something that could undo everything they knew. Doctor Strange, in his patched robe, finally appeared floating beside them, his eyes wide with recognition and fear. "He is a primordial entity. He should not exist," he murmured, barely containing the tremor in his voice. The Beyonder raised his hand and, with an almost casual movement, reshaped the space around him. Every stone and speck of dust floated away, dissolving into a silvery mist. "You have spun the timelines like threads in a loom. You have created paradoxes, broken barriers, and defied the natural order." Loki tried to intervene, his voice dripping with sarcasm, masking a hint of fear. "Beyonder, you speak as if this were entirely our fault. But let us be frank, it was fate that pushed us to these choices." The entity looked at Loki, and for a moment, The god of mischief felt as if his entire essence was being unraveled and reconstituted. The blame, god of mischief, lies with all those who dared to defy the flow of time, and punishment will be exacted. Suddenly, bolts of energy flashed in all directions. The new Avengers were thrown back, unable to withstand the Beyonders' overwhelming force. Dr. Doom Stark attempted to launch a counter-offensive with an ancient spell laced with star technology, but was interrupted by the entity's cold, deep laugh. You, Doom Stark, are the culmination of all that has gone wrong. The Judgment Day you seek to enact is nothing compared to my judgment. Now you will all pay. The Beyonder, looming over the battle, seemed untouchable, a force of existence itself. His presence was a vivid reminder that all the heroes and villains gathered together were nothing more than pawns in a much larger game. He watched them with eyes that reflected galaxies in birth and destruction, his face expressionless in the chaos. Dr. Doom Stark, his armor gleaming with sorcery and technology, gritted his teeth. If you want us to pay, come get us. He raised a hand and unleashed a ferocious blast of arcane energy, striking the Beyonder square in the chest. For a moment, the light from the blast blinded everyone. But when the dust settled, the Beyonder was still there untouched. He didn't even blink, and his response was devastating. A wave of his hand and a wave of pure temporal force crashed into Doom Stark. He was thrown like a leaf in the wind, his armor shattering with a metallic scream. Thor, Mjolnir in hand, charged forward with a battle roar. For Asgard and Midgard, he swung the hammer hard, conjuring lightning bolts that lit up the sky like a raging sea. But the Beyonder turned his gaze to the Thunder God, with a single glance, brought the hammer to a halt in midair. The object, a symbol of Thor's power, began to disintegrate into particles of light, leaving the son of Odin in shock. You do not understand, said the Beyonder, his voice echoing in all directions. This is not about power or courage. This is about rebalancing that which has been distorted by your mortal hands and lesser gods. At that moment, Loki, still dazed by the weight of the situation, slowly rose to his feet, his eyes narrowing on an idea that flickered in his mind. Strange, we have only one chance to stop this, he whispered, crawling towards the Sorcerer Supreme. The key is to undo the anomalies before he can remake reality in his image. Doctor Strange nodded, his cape fluttering as if he shared his master's fear. He raised his hands, tracing symbols in the air that glowed a mystical gold. We need a distraction so I can reverse the flow of a crucial timeline, he announced. Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, heard this and stepped forward, his expression determined. The Avengers and I will keep him occupied, he said, turning to the other heroes who were still able to stand. It's now or never. Shang-Chi, his rings pulsing with energy, joined the captain. I'm with you, Sam. The ensuing clash was fierce and desperate. Sam Wilson flew into the fray, shield in hand, while Shang-Chi, Kate Bishop, and the other heroes attacked from all sides. The battle was a chaotic dance of blows, dodges, and screams of pain. Even united, the heroes could not shake the Beyonder, who moved with the serenity of a god, deflecting, blocking, and dismantling the attacks with a gesture. Meanwhile, Strange and Loki, amidst the shadows of the battle, worked on a spell that would take them to the center of the temporal anomalies. Loki, with a mischievous smile but serious eyes, murmured to Strange, I hope you know what you are doing, wizard, or it will be the end of us all. With a final movement, Strange's accumulated energy exploded in a blinding flash. Time froze for a moment, reality trembling like glass about to shatter. The Beyonder turned, sensing the change, and for the first time an expression of mild surprise appeared on his face. You dare defy the cosmic order? He raised his hands, ready to destroy them all. But at that moment, a boom echoed across the battlefield, and a familiar figure appeared on the horizon, slicing through the sky with lightning. Thor, now wielding a restored and gleaming Mjolnir, pulsing with a blue and gold energy unlike any other. For Asgard, Thor shouted, charging forward with a determination that gave even the Beyonder pause. And with that moment of distraction, the final piece of Loki and Strange's plan was set in motion. The battlefield fell silent for a moment. Doctor Strange's statement hung in the air like an impossible sentence. Thor, Mjolnir pulsing with energy never before seen, stepped back, surprised and skeptical. Loki arched an eyebrow, a disconcerting smile forming on his lips. Sam Wilson, covered in dust and blood, stared at Strange, trying to decipher if he really meant what he said. The Beyonder, watching everything with a disdainful expression, laughed, a laugh that reverberated throughout the fragmented reality around him. Do you believe that any being, even a mad titan, could challenge my supremacy? Doctor Strange took a deep breath, his eyes closing for a moment as his mind ran through the currents of possibilities. He had seen countless futures, scenarios in which all the Avengers were defeated, reality undone and rebuilt at the Beyonder's will. But in a single timeline, one that seemed as fragile as a spider's web, there was a chance. And it involved the return of Thanos. Thanos is no ally, he finally replied, his voice thick with tension. But his strategic mind and his desire for balance may be the only key to balancing the scales. If he understands that existence is at stake, perhaps we can use him. Thor frowned, his expression filled with doubt and contempt. To trust Thanos? The murderer of our friends, of so many innocents? Strange, that is madness. Loki laughed, leaning forward. Oh, brother, the true madness is not to try. The Titan, cruel as he is, understands the need for balance. And now we face something far worse than he ever was. The remaining Avengers looked at each other, their expressions torn between horror and determination. Shang-Chi clenched his fists, the rings on his arms glowing with an uneasy intensity. How do we do this? He asked, addressing Strange. Doctor Strange twirled his hands, tracing runes in the air as the mystical echoes of his magic began to resonate. I will need your help to create a safe haven to pull him from death and trap him on this plane. It will not be complete, but it will be enough to help us contain the Beyonder long enough. As the energy began to build, the Beyonder watched with growing interest. Do you truly believe that a resurrected corpse can change anything? This will be the last of your fallacies. With a snap of his fingers, he unleashed a wave of power that tore through reality, breaking Strange's spell and throwing all the heroes back like leaves in a gale. Sam Wilson flew, spinning his shield in the air and trying to keep his balance as the destructive wind whipped against him. Thor gripped Mjolnir with all his strength, his boots digging into the destroyed ground. Doctor, do it now. Sam shouted, his voice struggling to be heard above the roar of energy. Doctor Strange, with a final effort, conjured a luminous golden portal that pulsed with chaotic energy. On the other side, a figure began to take shape, its skin purple and its eyes burning with a fire that only Thanos possessed. The resurrected Titan emerged from the portal, his face contorted in a mixture of surprise and anger. His eyes narrowed as he saw the heroes and, beyond, the Beyonder. You dare bring me back? Thanos roared, but then he became aware of the Beyonder's overwhelming presence, and a flicker of recognition and apprehension passed through his eyes. He quickly understood that the stakes were far greater than his own ambitions. Thanos, Strange said urgently, we have no time. This entity threatens the entire cosmos. You know what that means. The Titan clenched his fists, a sinister smile curving his lips. So the scales are finally in real danger, he murmured, his gaze returning to the Beyonder. Very well. Let us balance them. Thor and Sam exchanged glances. The plan was insane, but it was their only chance. With Thanos at their side, they were ready to face the Beyonder in one last, desperate attempt to save reality. Thanos stepped forward, feeling the weight of his resurrection and the gravity of the situation. The battlefield, still reverberating with the Beyonder's overwhelming presence, became a stage for what promised to be the greatest confrontation in the history of the universe. The Avengers, exhausted and wounded, watched with a mixture of hope and fear as the Mad Titan advanced toward his enemy. You are a mistake in the natural order, Thanos told the Beyonder, his deep voice rumbling like thunder. Your existence is an affront to the balance. The Beyonder, impassive, simply watched, his eyes shining with a curiosity that bordered on boredom. Thanos, you think you understand the cosmic scales, but you're nothing more than a pawn trying to play a game of gods. Without warning, the Beyonder extended his hand and a bolt of pure energy shot toward Thanos. The Titan erected a barrier of purple energy, the impact echoing with an explosion that sent sparks flying across the field. The barrier trembled but held, and Thanos, with a quick movement, advanced, his eyes fixed on his new target. Doctor Strange took advantage of the distraction to cast a series of incantations in sequence. Complex runes appeared around the Beyonder, trying to contain him in a mystical circle. We need more time, he shouted to the other heroes. Thor, with Mjolnir in hand, launched himself at Thanos' side. We fight as warriors, Thanos, not for you, but for what is at stake. The Titan glanced briefly at Thor, a flicker of respect crossing his face before he focused back on the battle. With a gesture, Thanos created a shockwave that forced the Beyonder to retreat, if only for a moment. Loki, watching the battle from a safer vantage point, arched an eyebrow in fascination. Interesting how our worst enemies can become allies when survival is at stake, he whispered to himself, a characteristic wry smile never leaving his face. The Beyonder, recovering from the onslaught, towered above the battlefield, an imposing figure surrounded by a cosmic glow. No more games, he declared, and with a wave, he opened fissures in reality itself. The air shimmered, and portals began to appear, spitting out alternate versions of the heroes and villains who had fallen or been forgotten. Two versions of Tony Stark emerged, both with empty eyes and consumed by a technological virus. Other portals revealed a savage and unstable Hulk, a dark-eyed Natasha Romanoff, and a Captain Marvel ravaged by uncontrolled power. Sam Wilson exchanged a glance with Shang-Chi and the other Avengers who were still standing. We need a strategy. If we don't stop this now, these realities will consume us. Doctor Strange, still holding the containment spell with all his might, spoke through clenched teeth. Thor, Sam, keep him busy. Loki, you know what to do. Loki rolled his eyes with a sigh. The dirty work always falls to me. But without hesitation, he teleported to the Beyonder's rear, where he began to manipulate the structure of Strange's spell to create a more robust trap. The battle escalated to unimaginable levels. Thanos, fighting with the calculated precision of a strategist, traded blows with the Beyonder, who was shaping reality around him, each punch and blast of energy distorting into echoes of cosmic power. Thor, lightning dancing on his hammer, struck with godlike fury, his strikes only slowing the entity. The Beyonder, feeling cornered for the first time, finally revealed a glint of frustration in his eyes. You think you can challenge me with your petty strategies, he roared. In one sudden movement, he exploded in a wave of power, knocking Thanos, Thor, and the Avengers to the ground. It was then that Doctor Strange saw his chance, a flash of time where the Beyonder's forces were temporarily in disarray. Now he shouted, channeling the remaining energy to complete the spell. Loki activated the final rune, and the light around the Beyonder began to flicker, threatening to trap him. Thanos, realizing what was happening, threw his remaining strength into a final blow, pushing the Beyonder into the circle. The battlefield lit up with a burst of cosmic light that momentarily blinded everyone. When the light returned, the Beyonder was trapped, but his subtle smile indicated that it was not yet over. You have gained a moment, he said, but the end is far from written. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of Thor, panting, and Thanos, who looked around before turning to Doctor Strange. This was just a delay, he stated. The real battle is yet to come. That's our story for today. What do you believe about it? Will Doom Stark and Beyonder bring about the end of the entire multiverse? Don't forget to leave a comment with your opinion, click the like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. I'm Mr. Screen and see you soon. Bye.